15 years ago, when we began this research about the impact of superstar academics, the first thing we did is we talked to academics in the fields we're studying, which are the fields of the life sciences, to get their impression, their intuition about what might be going on. And what was interesting is that we heard two kinds of stories. We heard a story whereby the superstars inject their domains and their networks with fresh ideas, and as a result, if they were to disappear suddenly, that would be very bad news, both for those domains and for the people within them, in particular their collaborators. But we also heard, more rarely, but we also heard it, and it's stuck in our mind, a story whereby the problem with superstar academics is they don't know when to step off the stage, and they tend to suck all the oxygen out of the room and not let other people sort of come to the fore. What we find is that a superstar, a scientific eminence dying actually has very mixed effects. In fact, for the subfields in which the star was active, overall, the effect is mildly positive, but not very large. But the big aha came when we separated the activity in those subfields, the papers that enter those subfields, that are written by collaborators versus those that are not, that are written by non-collaborators. Okay? And when it comes to the papers written by collaborators, their contributions to the subfields really decreases permanently and markedly. But there is a countervailing effect. And for the non-collaborators, in fact, their contributions to those same subfields increases by about 8%. And in fact, because there are more non-collaborators than there are collaborators, this is why on net, okay, the effect on the subfield is mildly positive. We find that non-collaborators increase their rate of contribution to those subfields after the death relative to before the death. Okay? So we want to understand why, but even before asking the question of why, we wanted to know who are those people. Because one view, or one possibility, is that they were competitors of the star while he or she was alive, and now they've in some sense lost a competitor and they get to take the mantle of leadership in the field. But that is in fact not what we found at all. What we found is that those people are much more likely to be outsiders. This is like their first contribution or their first few contributions to the subfield. They come from somewhere else. There are two kinds of barriers to entry. Some of them you could call almost cognitive barriers to entry. Like, who wants to challenge a luminary, especially in a field that clearly revolves around its star, where there's very high degree of consensus on what the right methods are, what are the key references, where everyone sort of collaborates with one another. There are other things that I could be doing with my sort of intellectual insights, and I could devote myself to other fields. And in some sense, that's what we find. We find that in those fields that are unusually coherent, from a methodological standpoint, for example, there is less entry after the death. But there is something else also going on, it looks like, which is that there is sort of indirect control, even from beyond the grave, that basically when the superstar in his wake or in her wake leaves a sort of a posse of disciples, there is also less entry post-death.